Hello, hello. Welcome again to the All In podcast with Nate Pao. I'm here live with Dr. Jen Price, Generation Edge. For over 20 years, Jen Price has offered college and career advice to high school, early career adults and their families as they journey through the college admissions and career selection process. Dr. Price earned a doctoral degree in instructional design and technology to learn how to effectively integrate technology into the delivery of advising services. As a licensed master's level social worker, she connects individuals and families with the resources they need to reach their goals. This background also allows her to work more effectively with students facing unique academic and personal challenges, such as dyslexia, ADD, ADHD, autism spectrum disorder, or ASD, and depression. When she's not meeting with families, Dr. Price visits college and universities nationwide. To date, she has visited over 200 campuses. She's also a professional member in the Distinguished Independent Educational Consultation Association and the Texas Association of College Administration Counselors. Her work includes managing a high school college and career center, coordinating a summer youth employment program, advising college students in a private school, and teaching secondary level career and technology education courses in a public school. Welcome to the show, Dr. Price. How are you?
I am great. Thank you for having me on tonight, Nate.
Thanks for coming on. What you didn't hear in that intro is that you are actually releasing your book as we speak right now, too. Generation Edge, right? That's the name of it?
It is Generation Edge, your GPS for career success. It is on the verge of uploading in Amazon. I'm thrilled, delighted, tickled. It is still available from me directly for pre-sale with a t-shirt offer. It's a branded t-shirt that says Generation Edge, and it's really cool.
That's awesome. Is this your first book?
This is my first book outside of my dissertation.
Well, congratulations. That's big news. So
Thank
what
you.
was inspiring to you to decide to write a book? Like what led up to like, hey, I'm going to write a book?
Well, you hear people say oftentimes that there's a book inside of me, and there's just kind of a knowing that there's something that you want to share with the world. And I feel like my whole life I've been writing that book, and now I finally have put it on paper. And so it chronicles my journey to where I am now, and in terms of finding purpose and fulfillment in my career. I share a lot of personal stories, ranging from childhood through college and adulthood. And I share advice for students and their families and give them activities to complete along the way.
Awesome stuff. So let's talk about that origin story. Like, where did you, to go through school, a lot of schooling to become a doctor. I mean, that's more than I would ever want to go through. But where did you, find your inspiration to, go and become an expert in the field of helping people become better at getting into the schools that they need to continue their education?
Well, I grew up in a kind of a non-traditional environment in the sense that I grew up in a single parent home, and my father raised me and my three younger sisters after my mom passed away. And he instilled within us the importance of education being a way up. My mom, when she was alive, she really taught us and showed us how important the education was as well. So from a very young age, education was something that I knew that was important, and I knew that college was a part of the plan. I did not necessarily know what I would become over the years, but I knew that it was an important part of the plan. And neither of my parents finished a four-year degree. And so I'm actually considered a first generation college student that just kept going all the way to the very end, to the PhD. And I just found that even from childhood, I was teaching my sisters. And so there was always signs that I would go into education, and in terms of giving people advice, that I would become a counselor at some point. And so my book talks about kind of my upbringing and how I had ran into some pivotal moments in terms of picking a major, and all the way to where I am today.
Yeah. Did you find it difficult to get into college at the time, or was it like you mentioned like it was always on the table, like it wasn't any question that you were going to go to college, but did you have difficulties selecting the college you wanted to attend? Did you have trouble getting in and navigating the application process, or was it kind of a smooth sailing and luck would have it, you turned out exactly where you wanted to be?
No, I would say that it took a lot of planning, and as odd as this might sound, I started the process when I was in seventh grade. I knew that I was going to college, but we never talked about how we would pay for it. And so I took it upon myself to decide that I was going on a full ride scholarship. And I basically started my research in the public library, writing letters to scholarship foundations, asking them for their applications and studying those applications so that I would know what to do in high school and how I could become the ideal candidate.
Yeah. Well, that's very laying the groundwork at an early age for what you're doing now is really understanding how the application process works, putting your best foot forward, filling it out appropriately. And I think that's something that's hard to navigate. Do you work with a lot of people that like, hey, are they similar to you and that the kids that are applying for school are in their first time, like they're the first one in their family applying to college and they're trying to figure out the same things you did, like how do you get in? How do you pay for it? And um, college tuition has exponentially grown since probably me and you went to school, right? And so it's even harder to figure out like how are we going to pay for it? So I don't know. Is that something you came across?
Well, a couple of responses to what you asked. The families that I typically work with have their parents have actually attended college when I worked in public education because I did work at a traditional public school, a charter school. I also worked at a private school, and I've worked with homeschool students. So I've worked with kind of the whole range of students in the last 20 plus years as an educator and a counselor. But in my private practice, generally the students that are coming to me, their parents have continued on in their education, have advanced degrees, and they are typically executive level professionals. Some are in education. They value, the bottom line is they value higher education. And so, depending on the student, they may be looking at some more competitive institutions, not necessarily just a state school or maybe a state school that is very competitive or a private school or even an elite institution. And whatever kind of college you're looking at, honestly, the process has changed from back when we went to school. It was like maybe one page front and back. Now it's online, multiple sections. You're turning in test scores, and they're getting higher over the years. Of course, there's maybe several essays that they have to write. They're looking at the number of extracurricular activities and how deeply they're involved in those, community service, recommendation letters. It's very competitive because there are more and more students applying for college. Traditionally before COVID. And so, it's kind of that whole supply and demand idea. More students applying to college, more competitive in the admissions process.
Hmm. So where in the sequence of events, like I'm guessing I probably, if I come to you going into my spring semester of my senior year, I probably showed up at your door a little too late. Like when should I start looking at the application process? When should I start looking to fill my resume with the extracurriculars I need and doing the things I need to do to get in place? And when should we start having conversations with you or someone like yourself that's going to guide you through the application process and find the right schools for you? It just feels so like ninth grade, 10th grade, 11th grade feels so early. Like, how do you even know where you want to go to school, what you want to do? But at the same time, like, senior year is just too late, right?
Oh, it is quite a bit late at that point. I usually don't take seniors past October, sometimes not even September of their senior year. Some families have come to me as early as fifth grade. I think that's a bit early to come and ask for help. I don't think it's unreasonable to have a conversation once or twice a year, starting in junior high, just because there are some courses that you might end up taking as early as eighth grade that might impact the trajectory of your course selection. More specifically, Algebra 1, you usually need to take that by eighth grade in order to end up in calculus your senior year. And if you think you might want to become an engineer or major in the science, technology, engineering, or math fields, you want to try to be more competitive from an admission standpoint by being in calculus your senior year. So generally once or twice a year while you're in junior high, but really having that conversation, I would say after that first semester of freshman year, just because there's some course selection conversations. There's conversations about getting involved in service before it gets really difficult academically, in the 11th and 12th grade, and when you have a lot of demands on your time, not only from coursework standpoint, but from your clubs and activities, because now you're a leader. So it starts a lot earlier than families think.
Yeah, definitely need to get started early, start saving money early. Now, there's a lot of talk lately, like with the cost of tuition and the cost of school being so high that, college isn't the investment it used to be. Like you're going to get out, you're going to get a lot of debt. I mean, clearly you're helping people get into school, but what is your response to when people say, "Hey, should I still be considering continued education after K through 12 with my kids, and why is it still so important to have a college degree?"
Well, I oftentimes will tell my clients it depends. It depends on the bent of the student. And so one of the things that I offer in my private practice is career testing. And part of the reason why I offer it is because I find that students are exposed to a limited range of career options, and their families may not be as familiar with all the many options that are out there. And then, of course, there are careers that will exist in the future that they don't even know about. And so it's really a good idea to have an idea of what is the student interested in, what do they do well, and know a little bit about their personality so that we can come up with a career neighborhood for them. So looking at that career neighborhood, understand, is a traditional 4-year degree necessary or needed for that career pathway? And there have been times where I've recommended to families that they not send their child to a 4-year institution. But at the end of the day, I will help families accomplish whatever it is they're trying to accomplish. And I will still help that child get into college. And I will tell you, from experience, that student ends up coming back home after a semester or after a year, and then they go into something maybe that was recommended to them on their career assessment, and they are succeeding 10 years later, 15 years later, or even 5 years later, because I connect with my former students on LinkedIn. That's kind of my way of spying on them and seeing how things turned out from when I worked with them when they were in high school.
Well, that's amazing that I didn't even dawn on me to do that. That I remember doing applications. I think I remember taking some career assessments when I was in school, and when I was in ninth grade, 10th grade, 11th, I wanted to get into architecture school, and I did. And my first semester in architecture school, I was like, this isn't for me. There's just not me. And I moved away from it and went into construction management, which is more of an engineering field. But the idea of figuring out what you want to do at such a young age is weird. But a lot of times those skills that you're good at, they reveal themselves early on, right? And maybe, you go, hey, I want to be an engineer, and biomechanical engineering is not for you, but civil engineering might be. It's kind of figuring out what roles and what is available. And like you said, there's jobs out there that we don't even know they're going to be available in 5-10 years. And how do you start predicting those? So what do you do to kind of stay fresh in what the trends are? You're talking to people, they're planning for college 3 to 4 years out. They're going to graduate 4 years after that. So we're talking a 7 to 8 year projection in the future. How do you keep knowledgeable of hey, these are the things you want to go to. These are the schools that are going to be excellent in this. This is where you want to start putting your time and energy and resources to figuring out.
I will say that I'm not an all-knowing being at this point. And so what I try to focus on is what is the student really excited about? What are they interested in? And where do they excel? And the abilities assessment that I offer them, it is actually timed, and there are right and wrong answers. And so I'm really trying to get a sense of what do they, really enjoy, and where do they excel? And what are some things about their personality that are important to note, so that when you're looking at working environments, we know kind of what makes sense for them. And so as they're growing up, the goal is for them to gain exposure to different experiences, whether it's through electives in their school, whether it's through their clubs and activities at school. For example, maybe someone wants to be an attorney or they're contemplating that. They might want to get involved in speech and debate, or maybe even student council and start leading others. And so there's some things that they can do while they're in high school to see, oh, do I really like to serve others? Do I really like to lead others? Really, am I excited about math? Or maybe I just really love to paint and draw. And so we have those conversations also about, can you make a life for yourself? What kind of lifestyle do you want to lead after you finish college? Just because it's important for them to be able to take care of themselves as well. And so sometimes I have students that come to me and they're interested in the arts or some other fields that it might be a little bit trickier to figure out how they can take care of themselves if they're not like one of the best in the country. And so we have those real talks, but then find ways that they can build a career and still also take care of themselves.
That's excellent. I would love to know, like, have you seen some amazing success stories with your past students where they've gone on to really take a stand, become a leader in the world, and start shaping the future of humanity?
Well, I've seen students kind of go in different directions. If you look on my LinkedIn feed, and I hope to connect with your listeners, one of the things that I posted was a video from a parent, and she spoke about the process that her family experienced. I helped all three of her children, and she talked specifically about her son, and he went through career testing, and I recommended a major that they had never heard of and a college that they had never heard of, and they explored that more. And he even went to a summer camp and program before he left high school. And fast forward now, he's a senior graduating in December, and he had a job offer this summer. And
Hmm.
so those are the kind of things that happen. Or I noticed that students they're in medical school right now, or they're working on their PhD, or they're leaders in engineering. Maybe they're female leaders in engineering, and so they're doing a lot of great things. I had a student who was uh, not the best academically, who was also an athlete and had some motivation issues in terms of even making it to school senior year, which senioritis is real.
Hmm.
But he went on to college and ended up with a really high GPA, which he did not have a high GPA in high school. And fast forward now, he has his own business and in real estate. And he has offered me an opportunity to come speak on his podcast. So
That's
we've gone full
fantastic.
circle.
It's gone full circle for sure. I'm super curious. What was that major that they had never heard of?
I was industrial design.
Okay. Yeah, that would be what exactly is that to me too? So it's a lot of information to keep up on the majors that are available and figuring out where to fit people. But I kind of relate to your last story with the kid that didn't do so good in high school, but um, did really well. I didn't really do well in college either, but it's kind of like you taking classes that you're not super interested in, and you're having a hard time performing well, but then you take classes that are really interesting and you find your calling and you're just like just all in with it, and you're able to excel. And sometimes it's difficult to figure out, like, hey, where's my spot in life? And I don't really recall, other than some general stuff when I was going to look at colleges, where there wasn't a lot of support to kind of guide you where it was. And I think a lot of people, a lot of my friends, they felt like obligated that they needed to go to college, and they didn't perform well. They're probably in the wrong major. They probably, were going about it the wrong way. So it's great to hear that there is this available, and you're just really steering people and making a difference in their life. Now, do you work with mostly people local to where you're at, or is this something that you do online and all over the place?
Well, I work with families all across the country. I'm actually located in Texas, and I started working with students remotely before the pandemic. And at one point, I even had a student who was a U.S. citizen that was in Spain. And so technology has kind of changed the game in terms of anyone needing help anywhere in the country. They can get the kind of help that they need and the support that they need using technology.
Yeah. So do you have a bias to go to the University of Texas Longhorns?
Well, actually, I have a bachelor's and master's degree from UT Austin, and this is definitely Longhorn country. And of course, there are some Aggies, Texas A&M Aggies, in our backyard as well. So I would say there's definitely interest there. But I go out and visit colleges. Well, I did before the pandemic, and I visited over 200 colleges and universities. And part of that is how I do research in terms of what do the campuses have to offer? What are the different programs that are newer, that are out there? What is the vibe of the campus? So as I meet students, I'm getting a sense of who they are and what's important to them. So I can almost act like a matchmaking service for
Mhm.
them, not only for career, but also for college. And
Yeah.
so that's kind of part of what I do in terms of my calling.
hmm One of the things that I look back on that I thought was really important with the college experience was actually living on campus, and that's something that's is maybe a little bit more to people are choosing not to, or they're doing the 2-year program, and then they go through junior college and they participate in the 4-year program after that. But I felt like that experience of being on campus and living there, first time away from home, it was kind of like this, like baby steps of being on your own, but it gave you some responsibility, but it also wasn't like completely thrown to the wolves. What is your thoughts on, should people experience the college life, the campus life, the dorms, the fraternities, the on campus living, and the social scene that goes with being in college?
Well, I want to say it depends because sometimes some students are not as mature as others. I think society sometimes thinks that, oh, when you hit 18, I mean, sure, they're an adult, but are they really ready to head off on their own? I certainly was a little bit more mature because of my birthday being in September. And so I was a little bit older as a freshman in college. And so I was able to I mean, I still made my fair share of mistakes, but at the end of the day, I was ready to transition. And sometimes students might need to stay at home and go to community college. And certainly when the economy is tough, like it is right now, it may make sense for the student to stay at home, especially if they're not sure what they want to study and major in, versus going off and paying the tuition at a large state school or a private institution, when they can go to community college and get some more clarity regarding what direction they want to head in, and then transition into a 4-year institution. So they're experiencing some savings on the front end and avoiding some debt, some of the debt that could be accrued from going to a traditional 4-year institution. Because the living expenses is really what you're paying a lot. I mean, sure, tuition is high, but also the student living independently is a large expense as well. I am a big supporter of a student having that opportunity to live on campus, to help them as they're maturing and growing up, and learning how to manage their schedule and getting involved and learning how to go to class in some cases
Yeah.
and networking, whether it's through a fraternity, sorority, or even, social activities, and even serving.
hmm Well, this has been an awesome conversation regarding continued education. So, I want to ask you before we go: is what does it mean to you to be all in?
All in to me, it means refusing to give up, refusing to quit, that you don't have a plan B. Now, I'm not saying I'm not against a plan B or an alternative route, but I think pivoting and continuing on. If you realize the route that you're going down is not working, you don't totally give up. You may need to tweak the plan, adjust the plan, but still head in that direction towards that ultimate goal and not give up. And being willing to do whatever it takes to reach that goal.
Yeah, I like that answer because not always is it a straight line, and it's very focused. Sometimes we have pivots. It takes us a little bit of different direction, but you hit it on the head with, you don't give up, you keep moving forward, and you keep doing it. So let's talk right real quick before we go, is who are those ideal clients that you love working with, those ones that really, are the best, that give you the most excitement to wake up every morning and see their faces?
I would say students and families between the grades of ideally parents, because the conversations begin with the parent, and then of course I meet the student. But everyone in the family, they need to be open to the possibilities that are out there. I know sometimes some families come in and they say, oh, they have to get into this school, but maybe that's not the best fit for the student. So people who are open to possibilities, students and parents that are open to the possibilities. And so if you have a teenager or young adult and they're struggling with, what kind of career pathway, what kind of college options could exist for them in the future, look me up on LinkedIn. Also find me on social media at Dr. Jen Price. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.
Awesome. So all those are linked here in the show notes, so you can easily get connected to Dr. Price. I encourage you to reach out, say hello, start a conversation, especially if you have kids that kind of fit this demographic of going into college in the near future. And if you do reach out, you do have a conversation, make sure you let her know you heard her first on the All In podcast with Nate Peo. So thank you so much for coming on the show. Appreciated having you.
Thank you, Nate.